Hi, my name is William Huston. I'm from Binghamton, New York, Broome County. I just wanted to start out by saying that FERC did not do an adequate NEPA review. They did what they call an EA, Environmental Assessment. And a project of this scope really deserves a full EIS, which can take years. Just yesterday, the Council on Environmental Quality issued guidance that said all federal agencies doing NEPA reviews need to study the effects of climate change. FERC definitely did not do this in their fast-track EA. One of the speakers mentioned that the emissions from these 3 compressor stations, new and improvements, do not meet Title V thresholds. And I want to say that that's a little deceiving for a couple of reasons. Number one, when we look at the cumulative output of all of these compressor stations, it comes out to be a hair under 200,000 tons per year in CO2 equivalent. And if we, I'm famous for my train analogies because I can't understand how much 200,000 tons is. But if you imagine a coal car is 100 tons. A mile-long coal train, the payload is 10,000 tons. So 200,000 tons per year is like a coal train 20 miles long. That's a lot of emissions to be just doing fast-track cursory, analysis. And by the way, this 200,000 tons is just from engine exhaust. It does not include blowdowns, fugitive emissions, or the extra emissions that come from startup. And I want to remind you probably heard this 100 times, but methane gas is 86 times at least more potent than CO2, the greenhouse gas. And the ice caps are melting at a faster rate than anybody predicted. Larry Schweiger, the president of the National Wildlife Federation, says there will be no polar ice by 2060, and it might be happening faster than that. The last thing I want to say is Barlow's formula. Barlow's formula says that as a pipeline ages, the thickness of the pipe decreases. That means the maximum allowable operating pressure must go down. But what we're doing is we're saying that we're adding all this compression to a 60-year-old pipeline. That's crazy. That's asking for a disaster. Please deny this permit. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bob Nilsson, and I didn't come here tonight to speak, but I felt moved to do so after listening to all of these comments. Pretty much because what you guys are up against is a neighbor coming in and wanting to change your quality of life without asking your permission, and they're asking FERC and the DEC for permission. I think most of us know that FERC is just a rubber stamp agency and a sock puppet for the fossil fuel industry. So I don't think that they're gonna do anything other than suit the interests of the industry profits. I want to talk to you about a new neighbor that I got a few years ago. I live next to Hemlock Lake, over 8,000 acres of protected land, the 2 only undeveloped Finger Lakes, water supply for the city of Rochester. And a few years ago, Rochester decided that they needed to sell that property. And thankfully, the DEC came in and bought it and turned it into a state forest and said that they would protect it and keep it forever wild. I couldn't have been more happy. When the draft unit management plan came out, however, for that state forest, it had 11 pages pertaining to oil and gas leasing and development. They held a public hearing, and what I want to say is the same thing that I said that night at that public hearing. And I also want to mention that at that time, we were still under the threat of fracking in New York State, and the DEC had 44,500 acres of state forests across 11 counties leased to the oil and gas industry. So we asked, how could you be tasked to protect us from this industry while you are leasing our state forest to the same industry? So my comment that night, my comment tonight is, first of all, to you people, thank you for coming out and standing up and raising your voices, because that has an effect. We managed to change the unit management plan. The final plan had a prohibition for fracking. However, we come to find out that when DEC staff assured us that no drilling would take place on that land, they were telling the truth, but they weren't telling the whole truth. What they didn't tell us was that they were pursuing non-surface disturbance leases so that neighbors could lease their property, and they did, and the DEC could still benefit by getting the gas out from under those bodies of water. So I'll close with this, the same statement I made in Springwater, New York, at the public hearing for the draft unit management plan of Hemlock and Canajoharie Lakes, and that is, please do your job and protect the environment and don't facilitate the industry. And know that if you don't, we the people will stand up and we will do your job for you.
Thank you. That concludes all the cards. So in closing, a reminder, the public comment period will close at 5 p.m. on Monday, September 12th, 2016. Written statements should be submitted to Christopher Hogan, New York State DEC Division of Environmental Permits, 625 Broadway, 4th floor, Albany, New York, 12233-1750. Phone 518-402-9151. Fax 518-402-9168. You may also submit comments to newmarketproject@dec.ny.gov. This hearing session is adjourned. Thank you all for coming. And the time is 8:54. Thank you.